All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another ShareWise webinar. My name, Harry McCaskill, one of the senior advisors and head of desk of the firm. Very, very excited today to introduce Joe David, one of the managing directors of Elementos, which is ELT on the ASX. He's got a few key topics he wants to discuss. It will be recorded, so you can always go rewatch if you sort of missed out on a few things. But David, Joe, I should say, pleasure having you. I won't take the spotlight. I'll let you introduce a few things, a few key topics. Will be a little bit of a Q&A at the end. So allows the people watching to ask you a few questions, and it should be good.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Harry. Great to be back with ShareWise. I know we spoke a little while ago and certainly got some great engagement from you and your clients and the broader audience. Very, very glad to, I guess, present Elementos after, really hitting a number of major milestones that we've been planning to hit.
We appreciate your time, and last one went really well. So
Yeah,
should be something similar.
Perfect, mate. So what I might do is we've got our published ASX investor presentation we put out a couple of weeks ago. So I might pull that up. It covers most of the main major points, but obviously, really shows where we're at, where we're playing in the tin market. For those unfamiliar with us, we are one of the very few listed tin companies globally. We are a tin developer. There's only two listed producers, one in Tasmania and one in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. Recently, that one got shut down by terrorists and armed forces, but it has restarted. So, bit of a summary of the global tin market there.
Yeah.
Very challenging supply chains, and certainly, there's a lot of people out there looking for some more responsible supply, and that's exactly the position we're taking in the market. So,
Beautiful.
let me. Yep. Sorry, mate.
I'll let you share screen and get on with it. Beauty.
Yeah, perfect, mate.
All right, done.
So you should have the full screen there.
Yep, and then you can go presentation mode and ready to rock.
Perfect. All right. So yeah, for everyone unfamiliar, we're Elementos, ELT on the ASX. We have two tin projects in development. As I said, it's only a handful of tin projects in development globally. Why should you be interested in tin at all? Well, tin's the main ingredient of electrical solder. Electrical solder is what holds together all electronic circuits. So think data centers, think solar PV arrays, think anything electronic. So yeah, clearly the world's moving to a much more automated, electronic backed future. So tin's got a critical role to play. Absolutely no substitutes to tin. However, sorry, historically the only substitute was lead. Although, as we fully aware, lead is not a thing that people like to use now due to its toxic nature. This is been published on the ASX, so if you are looking for a copy of it, please go find us on the ELT. So again, um, if any investment into ELT gives you exposure to tin. Tin is a critical mineral on nearly everybody's lists around the world, including the major economies of UK, the USA, Canada, China, Korea, and a number of others. So, if you want to get exposure to a critical mineral, tin's a bit of a niche one to play, but certainly one you should look at putting into your portfolio. Right now, we believe ELTs are a pretty attractive valuation on the market compared to what our net present value of our projects are. For us, we really have a strategic pitch to everybody. There are no operating tin mines within the European Union right now. We have the only project in development that's gone through a feasibility study and has an ore reserve. And we've also made strides through an optional agreement to go downstream with 50% ownership of a tin smelter in Spain. So for us, and the base of our DFS that we recently published, is a mine to metal strategy to deliver tin into the European Union where there's currently no supply. Ticks a hell of a lot of the goals, and certainly protects the EU somewhat from this ongoing trade war. Majority of tin, vast majority of it goes through China and Southeast Asia. in its supply chain. So for North America and European Union to start developing their own tin supplies to service their advanced manufacturing is absolutely critical, and we are absolutely prime place to play that role within the EU. We also have our asset in Tasmania, northwest Tasmania. It's an old operating tin mine, currently in development, and recent drilling has really given that a bit more of a future, not just as a tin and copper mine, but it's got a critical minerals asset sort of building below the old tin mine with key minerals being tungsten, gold, silver, rubidium, fluorite, molybdenum, bismuth. Don't expect you to be very familiar with a lot of them, but yeah, many of those are on critical minerals lists around the world, play a critical role in a lot of advanced technologies. So we're really excited about the future of our Tasmanian asset, the Cleveland Tin Mine. Where are we at? So major milestones delivered the first quarter of this year for Elementos. We completed our definitive feasibility study. I'll take you through the results. We submitted our primary approval permits in Spain, which is a major milestone for the company. Those two documents are fully aligned. So the business case we presented to the Andalucian Spanish authorities fully aligns with the DFS that we presented here. So that's great, full alignment, and we're looking forward to getting the project approved in the next 12 months or so. As well, in that in parallel, we'll be doing the usual. We'll be raising equity, raising debt to the project finance, as well as getting some offtake commitments. And I'm really pleased to say, since the DFS went out about a month ago, we got a lot of industry interest in participating in the Oropesa Tin project. Right now, we're drilling in our Tasmanian project, and we'll look to further define the asset down there, and then we'll take it through the formalised study process for mining projects. The first stage will be a scoping study, which will really put the first flag into the Tasmanian project of what investors can believe it's worth. But we're very happy with what we're seeing out of Tassie, and as I said, currently drilling it right now. So why is an integrated story, mine to metal in Europe interesting? Well, as I said, Europe's got no tin supply. Most of Europe's tin supply has been supplied from Indonesia historically, which produced through the tin ingots, and Europe's been buying them. Right now, China is short tin metal, so they've been sucking up most of the tin supply. This is actually driving a pretty significant need for tin within the European Union. And tin in the European Union is actually trading right now for about $1,000 above the published tin price. So, the London Metals Exchange publishes a tin price, so does the Shanghai Futures Exchange in China. Both of them are trading around $31,000, $32,000 for metal delivered within Europe. There's an extra $1,000 on top of that. So for us, that really underwrites our business case of smelting, of mining and smelting within Spain, and then selling that metal into Europe. So pretty strong business case for there, and one we think will only grow more so as forecast deficits come into tin, and then obviously the growing trade wars and all the issues that's happening across borders right now. So for us, a couple of very interesting developments in the last 2 months. One, we've got the option across the Roble Llano smelter to the north, which is great, and that's the base of our feasibility study. However, in the last 6 weeks, we also announced a very interesting partnership with a group called Atlantic Copper. Atlantic Copper own, I think it's the second or third largest copper smelter in Europe. And very interestingly, they're owned by Freeport-McMoRan. So Freeport-McMoRan is US listed. It is the 6th largest mining company by market cap in the world. We have signed a test work partnership agreement with them. We're looking to test some of our concentrate from our project going through their new smelting facilities they're building. So I said they've got a very large copper smelter down at the Port of Huelva there in the south of Spain. They are building a e-waste facility there as well. And between the copper smelter and the e-waste facility, they are assessing putting tin into that circuit as well. Us being a local tin project, we've worked very closely with them, and we're currently working through the process. So they're going to go through the test work as you'd expect, but obviously for us, it's a real big shot in the arm to get the 6th biggest mining company in the world, the largest industrial employer in Andalucía, which is the region of Spain we're in, for backing us, paying for this test work. And for us, that's huge in the eyes of basically the Andalusian government, and certainly should give a really big shot in the back to most of our investors who can see that we're building major partnerships within Spain and within the European Union. So for us, that is the first, hopefully, of many local Spanish and European partnerships we're currently working on. So please stay tuned, and hopefully there's more to come in the near future. In terms of the DFS, as I said, it's a major outcome for the project. For those not familiar in the engineering world, definitive feasibility study is basically the final study you'll put out as a project to support both project financing, the debt facilities, equity investment, and offtake into the project. So it has a really high level of maturity, magnitudes higher than a scoping study, and significantly higher for a pre-feasibility study. So basically, the market should get a lot of confidence in this MPV we've put out, about 270 million for the Oropesa tin project. As I said, it's only one of two tin projects we currently hold, and vast significant multiples compared to our market cap, which is currently around $19 million. So for us, big value disjoint there, and certainly I think a lot of people can see that as some a good time to invest in a company like us with significant asset being valued so high. Critically for us, the all-in sustaining costs of our project have been modelled at about $15,000 a tonne. Very simply, that's effectively the cost of producing our tin. As I said, the current tin price is sitting about 32,000. Add another $1,000 on that for production within the EU. We've got some pretty healthy margins moving forward. Obviously, that's reflected in our MPV. 12-year mine life, 2.7 years capital payback, 26% internal rate of return. So again, very healthy numbers at what we believe is a very conservative tin price. Looking forward, and based on the consensus forecast for tin, which is currently sitting around $35,000 moving into the future. So tin is forecast to go into deficit in the next couple of years, and because of that, it's forecast that prices will go up. So as you can see from this graph, we've just highlighted where our market cap's sitting against what our DFS base case was, 19 million against 270. But it's fair to say, when you look at the consensus price, which is basically the average of a whole bunch of banks and commodity forecasters together, they're forecasting our project. The tin price will move into about $35,000 plus. That puts the MPV of the project significantly higher into that $455 million range. So obviously some very healthy numbers there, and certainly our job to continue to convince investors that our company's worth a lot more than the $19 million market cap. But certainly, I think a lot of people can take that as there's a lot of value looking forward. This is just the build up, a little bit probably too technical for what we're going through, Harry, but there's the build up to get to our $15,000 all-in sustaining cost. So this is more just to show people we've done the work, we've done the analysis, everything is modeled, got a highly sophisticated financial model, highly sophisticated cost base. 90% of our DFS has been market priced by Spanish contractors, power prices, commodity consumables, all that. To get to a DFS level, you have to have a high level of confidence in that. We've hit all the engineering maturity levels and all the rest of it. So we're sitting very sweet, and certainly for us, our next stage is to continue to develop our partnerships within Spain and Europe and bring some major parties into the project to realise that value. Capital costs, just around 150 million to build the project. For us, that has been significantly higher from the scoping study we did 3 years ago. I would question any project that had puts out a lower cost over the last 3 years based on the global inflationary pressures we've all been under. But either way, even with that cost, which is still very, very low for a greenfield mining project around the world, we're happy with that. And obviously that is all taken into consideration in the MPV we've published. So, still some very healthy numbers. Again, this is just to show we've worked with the Andalusian government to develop the footprints of our project. The disturbance footprints are obviously very important to any project. We've done a very mature and sophisticated job at minimizing the disturbance the project has, and where we do cause external disturbance from external waste dumps and whatever, we have located those to cause the least effect on the natural environment. For instance, the two waste dumps highlighted in green, you can see in the south and the east of our project, are sitting in very cleared areas, so impacting less trees and birds and wildlife and all the rest of it. So to get a project approved in Europe is not super easy, although I would argue nowhere in the world is super easy right now. But if you design your mine responsibly, which we have, and in conjunction with the administration, we're very positive, very hopeful that the next phase of approvals with the government is going to go really smoothly. So yeah, no, we're feeling really well placed with the project right now. So yeah, just to a little bit more background on the design. Everything in this mine has been designed 3D spatially. We've got a couple of clips here of the main crushing circuits, core ore stockpile into the plant. So obviously this is just to show that all the major packages have been designed to interact and interact very efficiently. But you're not surprised about that if you've gone through a definitive feasibility study before. This is just a bit more of a visual one. I think some investors get a little bit, I don't want to say confused, but when we talk about reserves and resources and all these sorts of things, it's not always easy for those not in the industry to fully comprehend. Bottom part of this slide is to do with our mineral resource estimate, which we published a couple of years ago. That's the 19.6 million tonnes of resource sitting under the ground. But what we actually do is we part of the DFS is you run what you call your economic pit shell. We've done everything at $30,000, as well as applying other economic modifying factors. And basically the result is your external pit shell of an open pit mine, and all the resources which sit outside of that are excluded, and all the resources within that become all reserves because they're deemed economic and they form a part of your mine plan. So here we've got a 76, nearly 80% conversion, which is fantastic for a mining project, and certainly we work very hard to make sure that conversion is a high level. And we've got 15.9 million tonnes of a JORC ore reserve. So this is the maiden ore reserve for the project, and certainly is what banks and other investing parties would like to see before they invest into projects. So we've got a very significant tonnage there, good grade for an open pit, and obviously the contained metal is 57,000 tonnes, which puts us in a very significant level within the global tin market. The International Tin Association, which is the predominant association for the industry, basically after viewing our DFS and all reserve statement, has designated us as probably one of the most likely next projects to come online globally. We are very much on the front end of the development of all the other tin projects globally. So we took a lot of pleasure in seeing the International Tin Association do that. Obviously, designing a mine now, you've got to do it responsibly, and we have, as I said, the DFS and the ore reserve are put out fully aligned with our environmental, high levels of environmental standards, including a full rehabilitation and reclamation plan. Basically, to be responsible, you've got to plan your mine in reverse. You work out what the ultimate disturbance of your mine's going to be, and then you work out how you're going to rehabilitate it, and then everything else gets backfilled into that. So we came up with acceptable layouts. We consulted with the administration. We've designed external waste dumps so they're effectively at the rehabilitation slope height. A number of other things to really set ourselves up for success, and will get us a long way we've got a lot of buy-in from community groups in the area based on what we're planning to do with the site afterwards, as well as I said, being very, very engaged with the environmental and mining departments within Andalucía. So yeah, very, very happy with the design we're presenting to everyone. Obviously, as you go through the process in Spain or anywhere around the world, you do start to develop some very significant partnerships. Our project is a state significant project in Andalucía. For those not familiar with Spain is full of autonomous regions, more independent than the Australian states. Andalucía is the region that we reside in, and Andalucía is the major mining region of Spain. So 90% of Spain's metal mining revenue comes out of Andalucía. That is where all the large Miners are Sandfire Resources, which, ASX-listed copper miner, are operating in Andalucia, as well as some majors from around the world. Grupo Mexico, which is one of the biggest mining companies in the world, is operating in Andalucia. We also have First Quantum with the Cobre Las Cruces deposit. So whilst Europe's not known as a major mining region around the world, the south of Spain certainly has attracted a lot of majors, and their mining laws and environmental laws, very supportive to large and responsible miners. Obviously, our smelting partners that we've got the option over is the CRM guys. We've got some very strong relationships now with the local universities. That plays a critical role when you go through your approvals process. So we got a lot of buy-in from, what I would call global experts, but certainly with local knowledge. And we've designed our environmental planning and documentation, rehabilitation plans with a local viewpoint as well as a global best practices viewpoint. I've already covered off our agreement we've got with Atlantic Copper. Magtel is another big private group in the region. We've supported them on a clean energy tender, which they're participating in, soon to know the results. Big pumped hydro scheme. Obviously, if the pumped hydro scheme get selected as the tender, we'll work very closely with them to securing our green energy into the project. So another big tick moving forward, as well as some local economic development groups. So building strong local partnerships is very important to us, and we're going a long way to do that. So that's the summary of Oropesa. So what I might do is just finish off on our project down in Tassie, unless you got questions, Harry, and then we can and then we can do questions at the end.
I think there's nothing wrong with you finishing up with the project down there in Tassie for those who might be interested, and then we'll go through a few questions.
Perfect, mate. So for those not familiar, Tassie, northwest of Tassie is a pretty well-known tin region. The Renison Bell tin mine, still operating, Australia's only major tin mine, is operating down there. As well as a number of other projects in the region. The Cleveland Tin Mine is the one we've got. It is called the mine because it did operate till 1986. Has some significant production over those years. We picked it up as an exploration lease, and we're pretty buoyed by the tin copper story. It's predominantly a tin mine, does produce a copper byproduct. However, what is also very interesting, and I think what really will play into the life of mine for this project, is there is a substantial porphyry tungsten deposit below. We have 4 million tonnes of the tungsten already resource sitting at 250 metres below the surface at the bottom of the pre-existing decline, which does save a lot of capital costs having that infrastructure already in place. But last year we did a really significant drill hole. We drilled a hole from the other side of the hill, and I'll show you a shot in the next couple of slides, where no drilling had been done before. As we went down 70 metres below the surface, we hit some pretty some very high grade copper gold. It was nearly 10% copper, 5 grams per tonne gold, 18 grams per tonne silver. We only hit about half a metre of that, but we're currently doing a drill program into that target right now, following some downhole electromagnetic surveys, which gave us a nice big target to have a look at. So that's very exciting and nice and shallow. And, the shallow stuff is, the more deemed it's easily economic. But then as we went down into this very large exploration target, which sits below the tin copper, we obviously intersected the tungsten, which we knew was there. But what was extra exciting for us is this full suite of critical minerals we also hit. So it is a polymetallic deposit. It is a porphyry style deposit, which for those with a more geological sense means your grades tend to be a little bit lower than other standalone mineralization types. But it's the combination of all those minerals together which make this looking like a really, really interesting, big block of resource. Those other minerals other than tungsten are fluorite, rubidium, molybdenum, bismuth. A number of those have been had export restrictions put on them by China, and certainly majority controlled by China. So again, this growing trade war, having a suite of critical minerals sitting at your project for further exploration is pretty exciting for the company. This is just a bit of a shot of the drilling we did. and just to orient people, because when you're talking about multiple minerals, people get a little bit confused. So we've just really color coded this simply. We do have a 7.5 million ton resource, which is still a very large tin resource there. Still hard rock that hasn't been mined. 7.5 million tons, 0.75% tin, 0.3% copper. As I said, historically operated for about 35 years. We then have this 3.7 million tons of tailings reserve, which in the future we look like we'll regrind, refloat, and get some more tin copper out of that, as well as the nearly 4 million tons of 0.3% tungsten in the red circle there. But where we hit last year was this very large drill hole, which we've just shown some colors of below that. So this is just from the other angle, showing the really significant intercept. So, we're talking about nearly 500 meters, 465-meter intercept of tungsten, rubidium, molybdenum, bismuth, and fluorite. So for us, really exciting, especially because we've got the decline developed down to the start of it. Included with that inferred resource we've got at the top, the 4 million tons in the light pink there. I'm not sure if you can see my cursor, I'm just highlighting it. That area there has only been resourced to tungsten, but re-looking at a lot of that core, it looks like it does have these critical minerals as well. So another piece of work we really want to get down in Tassie next little future is re-logging that core, re-assaying it for this critical mineral suite. So a lot of excitement for what we're doing in Tassie. And as I said, we've currently got a drill program underway. Just got a shot of that high grade tin copper there below. I do have a little section of it in front of me, not that you can probably see. I think the green screen's going to do that, but really interesting bit of core. So certainly something to be excited about. Just to finish, running through the tin market really quickly, the major producers are struggling to keep up their historic volumes of tin. And so there's certainly new supply required. Growth is continuing, albeit with the global inflationary pressures, not super high amounts of growth, maybe 1 or 1.5%. That is forecast to go up to 3 to 4% moving forward. But basically we've got supply dropping away, a lot of supply issues. China hasn't been producing as much tin. Myanmar, their biggest supplier, has been shut down for the last couple of years, plus the earthquake that just happened. Then you've got as I said, the ongoing conflicts in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. So a lot of supply headwinds and then an ongoing demand. It's very clear that more supply is required, and there is a lot of pressure from major economies for that supply to be from responsible regions, which us being in Spain and Tasmania certainly ticks those boxes. Tin price, as you can imagine, has been volatile given those supply headwinds, some of the conflicts coming and going, as well as any commodity right now in the view of what the US government currently is jumping around doing. So, but either way, we're sitting very strongly above the $30,000. We've been sitting above 30,000 on average for about nearly 2 years now, which the $30,000 was the base case of that NPV we've put forward in the DFS. So for us, we believe it's very strong pricing, and certainly there's a lot of evidence that pricing will continue to grow moving forward. In terms of my board, very quickly, my board, small board, but very experienced. Andy Gregg is the key guy. I got to show you, he's my chairman. He's my 20% shareholder. He ran a very, very large private American construction and engineering firm. They're the largest engineering and construction firm in the US. He's back in Brisbane, where the company's based, but he ran the metals and mining division for at least 13 years, and has delivered about $7 billion worth of annual revenue into the business. So major player in the metals and mining industry, and certainly a big supporter of Elementos and what we're doing. As I said, current equity markets pretty tough. We're sitting at just under a $19,000 market cap, mostly private high net worths or small funds on our register. Certainly, we're talking to sophisticated parties coming in, and certainly looking to bring in some more European-based investors. And I'm happy to say there's some pretty strong conversations ongoing at the moment on that basis. So, small market cap, but certainly a lot of opportunity to move up. And I think in the next 6 to 12 months, we're going to deliver a lot of value in there for our shareholders. And that's probably it, Harry. You don't need to see my mug anymore on that, so I'll just stop sharing.
Beautiful, Joe. I appreciate that. That was excellent.
Cheers,
A
mate.
lot of really, really exciting times and a lot of key topics you just gone through. I've
Yep.
got and again, congratulations on publishing the definitive feasible study.
Mhm.
It's a very, very big milestone for the business. How pivotal is that for the business moving forward, and I guess the global tin industry in general?
Yeah, hey, there's very few tin projects at the level we are, and really, it's not as competitive as other industries. You know, if you're a copper miner, you might or a copper developer, you might be sitting there with 100 other projects in development. So they like to compare themselves a lot. For us, we think all the tin projects in development are required in the next 5 to 6 years anyway. So it's not really a race for capital. But I must say, since we put out the DFS, um, the trade or the industry interest has been absolutely overwhelming for us, especially through the Easter and the school holidays period, where managing directors trying to get a little bit of a few
Yeah,
days off. It's been very significant. So I'd say from both partners who want to be involved on the offtake side, especially we're in a unique position. Most
yeah,
of the metal currently gets smelted in Malaysia, Thailand, or well, most of it gets done in the south of China. The only
yeah,
other options are basically Malaysia or Thailand. So, or there's one or two smelters in South America. So basically, us sitting in Europe with a European project with the plan to deliver metal has really opened the door for a lot of interesting offtake conversations. Obviously, we're talking to people. It's clear we'll need to raise equity and debt when it comes through to project financing this project. Those
yeah.
conversations, less than a month after we published, are coming in pretty thick and fast. So for us, we're going to run those conversations in parallel to the approvals process. So
Yeah.
when we get our approvals, it's a very tight turnaround to getting to final investment decision, and then obviously starting to build this thing.
Yeah, beautiful. And just on that topic of cash and moving forward, I just had a question come through. What are you doing about the cash position, excluding the chairman's loans? Is there a project stake purchase by a third party? Any options, or where are you at with that?
As the person who asked the question would be aware, I can't say much more than we've already disclosed publicly.
Yeah,
But it's quite clear in our quarterlies, we are talking to parties who potentially will come in to fund the company in the shorter term, as well as playing a role through the project financing. So yeah, there's many sophisticated conversations going on, which may or may not involve raising money on the ASX. But of course, my main goal is to bring in new shareholders that value add to the project, not just raising money. So for us, yeah, some very significant, sophisticated conversations going on.
yeah, I can imagine. And just regarding licensing, you've just recently submitted key licensing applications, and there's big reliance on that moving forward. Can you give us an update on the journey you've had regarding regulation? Because I personally know how hard it is to get licensing and things across the line in Europe. It is probably one of the hardest places to do so. How's that been? And do you see more and more challenges moving forward regarding that, or do you think the position you're and I guess your competitors sort of aren't close to where you're at? Do you think that is going to speed up the process?
Yeah, hey, I've said it a number of times. We're in the best position we've ever been in terms of licensing. The project we put forward was after an 11-month consultation project with the environmental authorities. The environmental approval is always key, and we work very closely with the Court Open. So I guess Europe's hard, but Europe's not. Every country in Europe's different. Spain is better than most, and then Andalucía, the region we're in, is even better. So it's fair to say Spain has got a very Andalucía, of which all our approvals are based. We don't have any national level approvals. Andalucía has a centre right leading government. They are very pro industry, pro employment. They're really trying to drive true industry back into the area. We've been made a state significant project for a reason, because the province within Andalucía we sit in, being Cordoba, has been economically devastated. It used to be a coal mining region. Coal mining was all turned off by the EU, 20 or 30 years ago. EU has sort of flicked script from being an anti-mining, jurisdiction and made mining hard into really realizing the critical role that critical minerals are going to play in their green transition, as they call it. So from the EU down, you're really starting to see that story change. And Andalucía, I'd say, would be the absolute front runner for being pro mining. Now, people hate saying the word pro mining in
Yep.
anywhere in Europe, but we're sitting well. So we've had the consultation with the guys. The
Yep.
licenses we've put in fully aligned with the consultation we had with them. So we're sitting in a position where we're as best as ever. Obviously, we've got to go through the process. It's a highly regulated um, region, and you've
Yep.
got to go through, tick the boxes. But the administration's very aware of our project. We've got a lot of support from the politicians. So for us, we're looking and very hopeful on quite a rapid approvals process. I'm not going to put a time frame on it, and the reason
Yep.
is that what some of my shareholders don't realize at times is there's another party in the room when I make public announcements, and that being the Andalusian government. So what
Yep.
I don't want to do is make them feel pressured on time frame. We want to work collaboratively with them, not work have them feeling like we're pressuring them to a certain time frame. But we're
Mhm.
very confident our approvals are going to come quicker than most people are expecting.
Yeah, beautiful. It is. Once those approvals start coming in, then you've got offtake agreements potentially coming through as well. So, a lot of it is patience. Would you say they are the key risk, or looking at the broader market, the price of tin as well? What do you think the key risks are, and key opportunities as well?
Key risks or key perceived risks.
Uh,
um,
yeah, it's a good question. Both.
yeah. I'm a big believer once we deliver our approvals, it's going to be a major step change in the
Yep.
valuation of Elementos. So if that answers the question, so see that as a risk or an opportunity right now, I think there'd be a lot of shareholders that will see that as an opportunity. Certainly, we have a very highly engaged team on the approvals front in Andalucia. My key guys on the approvals front are the key guys getting other mining projects approved. So, a
Yep.
number of them are consultants, a number of them are lobbyists, but basically the team we've got is the A team, and they're the guys getting stuff approved. So the more confidence I can give people. But what we will do in the next short little while is start being a little bit more granular at the
Yep.
steps to get to your primary approvals. It's not a binary thing. We go through
Yep.
about 8 discrete steps. We're going to start publishing those updates to the shareholders so they can see the progress we're making rather than sitting around and just waiting for the piece of paper to show up
Of
in 9 to 12
course.
months.
Yeah, 100%. So it's just one step at a time. Take it as it comes, and make sure you're doing it efficiently, effectively. Uh,
The other thing we're clearly working on, and Harry, and this is the one I can't give too much details on, but um, acknowledgement from the Spanish or European industry in terms of asset level or ELT investment is
yeah,
certainly, I think, was something that could change the risk profile seen by ASX investors. So I can't say much on that front, but certainly something we're looking to do to bring in strong partners who understand the administrative and licensing permitting regime we're under, and certainly them coming into the project, potentially coming into the project, I think would be a major step change for ASX investors.
beautiful. And Joe, finally, in terms of key milestones, I know we've already mentioned a few, and I guess the licensing and approvals, and they are pretty key. But outside of those, are there any key milestones that you've got, in the back of your mind that you want to be achieving over the next 12 to 18 months to create that shareholder value? And obviously, hopefully, see that share price tick up as well, which will, get a lot more excitement around Elementos.
Hey, I think I just don't want people to think too linearly about the way that it goes from here. It doesn't all, wait till you get your primary licenses before some of those other things fall into place. Offtake, we are having conversation with off-takers earlier than people would expect. We are having conversations, as I said, with project level guys who can play a major role. As well as so that's, I guess, we've got the process in Spain. Second, that I think there's some, hopefully we'll have some really interesting news coming out of Tassie as well. So Tassie, as I said, we're drilling right now, we're sampling, stuff's heading off to the assays. as well as doing some further targeting. So I think Tassie's probably the thing that not many of our investors look at, because it has been our second asset for a long period of time. But I'd say they should expect a fair bit more news flow coming from Tassie,
Yeah.
whilst we're moving into a bit of a more of a grind process in Spain. We go through the administrative process,
Yeah.
but Tassie's, I think, what could really change the game in some investors' minds.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you've got a really good portfolio of different assets. You've got Tassie, you've got Spain, and it creates a little bit of versatility, and could in the long run, when things are really up and going, lower the volatility. In terms of if one is sort of lacking, the other one might be able to step up. So it looks very
Yeah,
promising.
I just correct, rather than one lacking, maybe one being in a little bit of a quiet period in terms of news flow. Yeah, no, they certainly
That's
they
correct.
complement each other in that way for sure.
Correct. Yeah, because again, those things take time and both completely different nations and regulatory situations. So one last thing, and I think I asked the question last time, but for any new listeners watching, question I always like to ask is, Joe, what if there's one reason and one reason only, shareholders should continue to stay an investor in Elementos, or someone should potentially become a shareholder, what would that be and why?
Hey, tin is a metal that is in incredible need. It's so clearly aligned with the electrification story, and there's so few options to play it. Okay, there's a couple of producers you can play, and you can ride their each quarterly they have, and just based on how much metal they're producing, we give people exposure to both. We give exposure to this incredible metal being tin, but also the upside of a company, at the final stages of its development curve. So, we give great exposure to both those things, which we think could truly bring some significant returns for majority of our shareholders.
Beautiful. Well, Joe, again, I appreciate your time, and everyone listening. Hopefully, you got a lot of value out of that, and I know there's a lot to take in. So, like I said, it is recorded. Joe most likely will put that on their socials, and you'll be able to sort of rewatch it. And again, if you want to reach out to myself or Sharewise, feel free. You can jump on our website, email us any questions, and I'm sure Joe the same. So, Joe, appreciate your time. It's been a pleasure. I know you're a busy man, and you got a lot of things to do, so we do appreciate it.
No, thanks, Harry. Really appreciate the time from yourself and Sharewise.
Beautiful. Well, everyone, enjoy the afternoon, and until next time.
Thanks, mate.